the funnel analysis or the gap analysis, I think it's a great call out. And there's definitely, I mean, even back from like my early on sales rep days, out in the world, it was always about understanding not just the gap itself, but perhaps the why, right? And so I think about from a partnerships perspective, in particular, when you're building from the ground up, the intersections of the partner, your business, and the value the customer gets become this like hyper-focused moment. And often, I mean, no exaggeration, quite often I've heard from peers and certainly folks, around me here at HubSpot, but also, obviously on the show here and just folks I talk to in general, that intersection being such a hyper-focused moment for every individual across the business, you almost like, it's the idea of like, if you hug something too tight, it kind of gets smothered, right? In that sense. And so I think there's a big part of what I've learned, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this, that like, it's actually the moments around that. How do we get to it? What are the ways that we support it? And I imagine, like, to your point with the SE background, having an understanding of pre-sales and the comprehension of how to support that sales experience, are you tackling, or maybe approaching is a better term, are you looking at the problem, the opportunity that you have at Walnut, and just in partnerships in general, with the methodology of single moment of value? Do you think about it in terms of, I'm going to lead you a bit, forgive me, but like the value around that moment, meaning, is it really about all the things you do with the partner leading up to the moment they transact with your customer and yourself? Or is it like the actual moment itself, the transaction, where the value starts, and then from there forward, you're, helping with co-delivery, or you're helping with, scoping or whatever it might be?
I think it's everything around it, because the way you frame it is super important for how the partnership will look like. At the end of the day, when you're trying to sell, and let's talk about this agency program, because that's like one of my biggest focuses. Like, it's a double value, right? Like, if you're going direct, you're selling to the customer, hey, why should you use Walnut? But if you're talking to agencies, it's like, why should they partner with you, and why should their customers use Walnut, right? Because we're a young company, right? It's not like I'm a Microsoft. I'm selling Microsoft and everyone already has, and it's agencies that need to just service it. It's like we do have like 350 customers, but it's not like they just see it all the time and they can just do service dollars from it.
There's category creation there.
Category creation, exactly. Yeah. So it's like, why should they care, and why should their customers care? So it's two layers in there. And based on where you focus the conversation, you will have different success. And, I'm all about like A/B testing, even when it comes to, messaging to like, some of it we were, mostly focused about them. Like, okay, yeah, here's what you get out of working with us, right? Like, you get all of the service dollars, like the high referral fee, all that stuff, and see how that goes. And some messaging would be just not about them at all, just about the customer. Like, okay, your customers need to adapt to the future of selling. Do they know how millennials and Gen Z want to buy? And like seeing that way. And some messaging was combined, like, hey, let's help you be more competitive as an agency while you work with customers on bringing them to the future of buying, right? There's like, you can play with all these different elements, and based on what you do with that specific agency and how you set it up, that will lead to the whole relationship. Right. I still have agencies that I talk to. I have this whole, explanation of how they can help them, and we can help them. And they still come to me and like, hey, okay, in order to start working, do you have leads for us?
Yep.
Like,
all the time. Yeah. Can you give me something?
But like, can you give me something? And like, I'm happy to give something, right? We have our own, like, we call it Nuts About Agencies, where we like showcase agencies. Like, we have ways of giving back. Leads is just not the natural motion of like, we just don't have leads specifically to give to like a marketing agency. It's not. So, but I still get that, right? So maybe I need to like work on making sure that they understand that the value that they will get from working with us is not, hey, here's another lead. It's like, hey, here's another service I can actually sell secondary, but primarily like actually service throughout the year, because that's what they care about.
So that comes from giving away value. To your point, I don't interrupt you, but I think I want to double click on that, right? So what you're talking about is not leading in and saying, which a lot of programs do. Like, there are a lot of folks that are coming in saying, sell our software, right? Sell our services, like just do what we are telling you to do. And I think for all intents and purposes, at least for our conversation, it's about, that expression of walk a mile in their shoes, like go and stand from their perspective, look back at you and say, like, is this what I would want to receive, right? And so what you're describing, it sounds like, is how do you determine their value? So let's talk about that. How do you do that? Do you go and interview them? Like, how do you think about that conversation?
Yeah. So first of all, we made all those mistakes you're just mentioning. We definitely made them. Like, the first time, it's like, okay, what is our program? Okay, they get this, they get that. And like, no one cared. Like they get bombarded by SaaS companies all day long. Constantly, like SaaS companies like, hey, can you sell our software? Because the ones that do it, and when you're successful, it's amazing. You have agencies just selling your software on your behalf. Your cost of acquisition is lower. Like it's perfect if you get it right. And because it's perfect if you get it right, a lot of companies do it and they get bombarded and they're just like another SaaS to sell. So we've been like doing all this different messaging. And one thing we started using literally this week is actually quotes from the founder of G2, right? Like we care about G2 and Trust Radius because that's where you can showcase your demos. It's an important place for us. We have partnership with these two companies. It's like, okay, they said that initial results show that people click on an interactive demo 3 times more than on a video and 2 times more than on screenshots, right? And now we have the moment that we can come to agencies and explain like, hey, if you continue, let's talk about digital marketing agencies. You have websites and you build websites for your customers. If you continue just using screenshots, there are better ways to do it. So like we're using more data as we gather it to kind of paint the picture of where the future of marketing and sales is going. And we're using that to explain kind of like, at the end of the day, inaction is always the worst thing, right? Like, you tell someone, okay, but like at the end of the day, you have to make them fear a little. Right, that's how selling works. Like, hey, what the before scenario, the after scenario, and if they fear, like, hey, if we don't adopt this technology, how we help customers will just become outdated. So we can help you stay competitive in your field while helping customers. So I think at the end of the day, what my biggest advice would be like, hey, if you're talking about what they get from it, boring, everyone's doing it, then bombarding, they're just going to ignore it. Talking only about the customer, great, but too vague. Like, okay, I get it. Like your software, you're helping customers. How does that involve me? But if you're working on like partnerships with agencies, it's like, how can we help you become competitive, create some fear with like, hey, if you don't do this, you'll be left out, and connecting it to the value for the customers, which is, 3x clicks or 2x clicks, more conversions, whatever your business is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good call out. I mean, I used to run our sales trainings a long time ago, but we always talked about there's 2 reasons people change quickly. It's fear of failure or excitement to succeed. Like full stop. That's it. There's no other reason. Yeah. It's that simple. Fear of failure or excitement to succeed. And so I think what you're describing to me is obviously one of those levers that you can pull on, which is the idea of, loss aversion. If you don't, others will. And then, you're without luck in that sense. You're sort of stuck in that moment. It's interesting.
And I think that strategy just applies to everyone. The fear thing applies to everyone. All agencies, what you will gain from it, like the flip side, there's some agencies that will bite and will be like, you know what, I will proactively do this thing because I see the advantage. But that's a subset that actually thinks that way of like, they have that growth mindset. They're like, where's my next thing? There's a lot of agencies that are pretty complacent. They're like, okay, we do this. We have these customers. And like, unless you kind of disturb that with fear, not with opportunity, but with the fear aspect, that's how you get into, having a conversation with them.
Yeah, that's smart. Well, it's been an awesome conversation. I've enjoyed our chat. Is there, where can folks get in touch with you? If they want to get in touch, like, are you on LinkedIn? Are you on the Twitters of the world? Where do they reach out?
I'm not on Twitter. Has nothing to do with the whole Elon Musk. I was never actually on Twitter before. I'm mainly on LinkedIn. Cool. So yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. I post, I have every week I post a Partner Wednesday. I just started that like a couple of months ago where awesome. I call out like a different partner, how we work with them, why we work with them, and kind of a bit about them. So yeah, I think LinkedIn is the best. You won't find a lot of people with my name on LinkedIn, so there's only one. So if you just look up my name, you will find me. That's the best way. Yeah.
Brilliant. I love it. Yeah. We're in the unique name club. I'm good with that. It's been fun, man. Thank you again. I appreciate the chat, and we'll definitely be back on the show. You get some really good insights here. I wish you the best of luck at Walnut. I hope you guys just absolutely crush it. And again, we'll see you in the next episode.